Categorical imperative is a standard of rationality which Kant considered to be the supreme principle of morality. For Kant, in order to determine what's right, you have to use reason, humanity, and universalizability. He made a distinction between the things we ought to do morally and the things we ought to do for other non-moral reasons, like desires. Kant considered whether or not to do something isn't really a moral choice. Instead, it's just dependent on our desires. For example, if you desire to get an SG, you ought to get a job. If you desire to lose some weight, you ought to follow a diet. Kant called these if statements hypothetical imperatives. They are commands you should follow if you desire something. Hypothetical imperatives are about prudence rather than morality. So if you don't want to lose weight, you can choose not to go on a diet. That would be a matter of choice and not a moral obligation. The difference between hypothetical imperatives and the categorical imperative thus is that the categorical imperative is something you must follow unconditionally, like a golden rule. Kant viewed morality not in terms of hypothetical imperatives, but through categorical imperatives. He considered that categorical imperatives are our moral obligations, and he believed that they are derived from pure reason. Kant states what's right and wrong is totally knowable, just by using our intellect. So how do you figure out what's moral? Kant discussed formulations in order to get to the categorical imperatives. One formulation is the universalizability principle. Kant wants you to ask yourself whether you agree to live in a world in which your action is a universally accepted rule. In Kant's words, act only according to the maxim which you can at the same time will that it should become a universal law without contradiction. For example, taking a piss on your friend's doorstep. If you approve of the act of taking a piss on your friend's doorstep to be a universalized action, for Kant, you are universalizing that action and saying that it's fine for anyone to take a piss on his friend's doorstep. This leads to a contradiction, according to Kant, and he considers that moral actions cannot bring about contradictions. In this case, the contradiction being that basically no one would agree that it's fine for everyone to take a piss on his friend's doorstep, because no one would like someone to piss on his own doorstep. This is why taking a piss on your friend's doorstep is not universalizable for Kant and does not fall under the categorical imperative. Stealing as well is not universalizable based on the same logic, because no one would like to get robbed. The categorical imperative is the ultimate universal commandment of reason, from which all duties and obligations are derived. He considered that the categorical imperative shouldn't be violated under any circumstances, and we should always do the right thing. So if a robber shows up at your house with a silenced 9mm pistol and asks you about your laptop password, you shouldn't lie to him, because lying isn't moral and not universalizable according to Kant. Kant considers that you should give him your password and not violate the moral law, even if the robber is doing so, and even if the robber has a good cause behind stealing your laptop, like selling it and getting money to feed homeless kids on the street. So for Kant, Robin Hood violates the moral law by stealing from the rich and giving to the poor, since he is stealing. A second formulation to get to the categorical imperative is the humanity principle. This principle focuses on how we should treat other people. In Kant's words, act so that you treat humanity whether in your own person or in that of another, always as an end and never as a mere means. This reminds us of the Christian phrase, love thy neighbor as thyself, or do unto others as you would have them do unto you. In other words, don't be an asshole, or don't act in a way that would only benefit you with no thought to the interest or benefit of the thing you're using. We use things as mere means all the time. I use alcohol to make myself feel better. It's morally fine to use things as mere means, but not humans. This is because we are, in Kant's words, ends in ourselves. We are not mere objects that exist to be used by others. We're our own ends, We're rational and autonomous. We have the ability to set our own goals and work toward them. Alcohol exists for consuming or a lot of other different uses. Humans exist for themselves. So to treat someone as an end in himself means to recognize the humanity of the person you're encountering and to realize that he has goals, values, and interests of his own, and you must keep that in mind in your encounters with him. Now, Kant also pointed out that we do use people all the time, and that's acceptable, because most of the time we use other people as a means for something, but not as a mere means. We still recognize their humanity when we use them, and they agree or consent to being used. For example, you agree to work for someone based on a salary. There is consent. Now, Karl Marx wouldn't agree with this and would be highly skeptical of the idea that people produce goods voluntarily under global capitalism. But that's how morality is supposed to work for Kant. In short, Kant considers that respect for humans is essential to our humanity, and that we are not called on to respect them insofar as they have met some standard of evaluation. And crucially, for Kant, humans cannot lose their humanity by their crimes and transgressions. Even the most vicious persons, Kant thought, deserve basic respect as persons with humanity.